Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into something maybe a bit different, more about everyday life, really. Human connection.
Yeah, exactly. Our source material is this really interesting piece called A Week with Four Friends.
Right. And it basically gives us a peek, like a window, into the conversations and, the interactions between these four people, Amit, Sarah, Ravi, and Neha, just over 1 week.
It's like being a fly on the wall, isn't it? Watching how these, well, pretty different people and their perspectives kind of bounce off each other.
So our mission here is to unpack all that, dig into their week, find those interesting little insights, the surprising things hidden in just, normal chats. What can it tell us about careers, creativity, connection?
And maybe about ourselves, too. Because the mix is really diverse. You've got Amit, the software engineer, very logical, structured thinking.
Then Sarah, who's deep in English literature, ideas, stories, narratives.
Ravi, he's the aspiring entrepreneur,
Mhm.
full of energy, always trying things out.
And Neha, the journalist, bringing that sharp, observant eye. It's a real mix of backgrounds.
Absolutely. And the source material starts us off right at their reunion. They're meeting at a coffee shop, haven't seen each other for, what, 4 months?
Yeah, and you can sort of feel that initial, maybe slightly awkward, hey, how are you moment.
Right, the polite catch-up questions. But it seems like that fades pretty fast, and they slip back into, being comfortable with each other, going deeper.
And their updates straight off the bat really show how different their day-to-day lives are. Neha's talking about her journalism work, this intense piece she just finished on digital misinformation.
Wow, yeah. She mentions the interviews, all the fact-checking. Sounds exhausting, honestly.
Totally. And then Sarah's update is from a whole other universe almost. She's immersed in like post-colonial narratives in literature.
And she describes reading all these different perspectives as humbling. That's the word she uses.
Then you flip to Amit. His world sounds, well, very different again. Science, very technical.
Yeah, matter of fact. And Ravi's being Ravi.
Yeah.
He immediately brings up his blog, his latest project, but also kind of jokingly reminds them about his past ideas of the week, like that chai delivery drone.
Oh, I remember reading about that one. It's funny, that contrast is so clear. Ravi even calls Amit's coding robot language.
He does. But what's interesting, I think, is that they aren't just like dismissing each other's worlds. Sarah finds both journalism and literature fascinating, but also, humbling, like she said.
Right.
There's this underlying respect.
Yeah, they seem genuinely curious about what the others do, even if it's totally alien to them.
And pretty quickly, they move past just the what I did this week stuff. Sarah actually asks this really vulnerable question.
What's that?
She asks if the others ever feel like they've picked the, quote, wrong path.
Oof. Yeah, that's a question that hits close to home for a lot of people, I bet.
Totally. And their answers are just so representative of who they are. Ravi, Mr. Entrepreneur, straight away talks about it being a winding path.
Right. His whole thing is about pivoting, changing direction. It's not failure. It's just, adjusting course.
Exactly. And Neha shares something personal, too. She mentions she originally wanted to be a novelist.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but life took her towards journalism instead. It shows how plans change. Sometimes for the better, maybe.
Sure. And Amit, what's the logical engineer's take?
Well, he says he's generally content with his career, but he does admit to sometimes thinking about more creative stuff,
Yeah.
like music or even game design.
Game design. Okay, that's cool.
And Robbie jumps right on that. He starts picturing this hilarious amid-coded game, super structured, all about rules and optimization.
I can just imagine, like spreadsheets made fun.
Kind of. But what's great is it doesn't just stop there as a joke. It actually sparks this cool idea between them, like chess, but set in a dungeon crawler environment.
Whoa, okay, that actually sounds fun. See, that's a perfect little example, isn't it? How these different ways of thinking, the super analytical and the maybe more free-form creative, can mash together and make something new.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, how many of us listening have that little hidden creative thing, or wonder about a different road not taken? It feels very relatable.
So after looking back a bit and sharing where they are now, the focus shifts, right, to the future.
Yeah, the source material moves into their more concrete plans, their aspirations for what's next. It shows how they're trying to turn their current situations and, dreams into actual steps.
Okay, so what are they planning?
Well, Sarah is really keen on studying abroad. Broaden her horizons, get a different perspective. She mentions maybe the UK or Canada.
Makes sense for someone studying literature and diverse views.
Totally aligns. Amit, meanwhile, his ambition is tied directly to his job. He's eyeing a promotion to a lead role.
Ah, okay. Depended on results, probably.
Seems like it. He mentions it hinges on the success of a new product they're launching. Very practical, very career-focused.
And Ravi. Let me guess, another venture.
You got it. To this pitch for an app.
Mm.
The idea is to match local artists with event planners.
Okay.
And Neha nails it. She jokingly calls it Uber for art.
Ah,
Uh,
perfect. That's brilliant.
but Robbie also says something interesting about his blog. Amidst all the business talk, he calls it his therapy.
That's important. It's not just about making money or the next big thing for him.
Right. It shows that personal value, the passion behind it. So you see how each of their next steps is really tailored to their own sort of core drivers.
Later in the week, the scene changes. They're outside, is that right? In a park.
Yeah, the vibe shifts. They're in a park, and it brings up this whole connection between, like, nature feeling peaceful and where ideas come from.
Does it seem to help them being outdoors?
Apparently so. Sarah mentions the piece, how they needed it. Ravi agrees, saying he gets bursts of ideas when he's out walking.
And Amit, predictably, has some data to back it up.
You know it. He drops this little nugget about research showing that physical movement actually stimulates creative centers in the brain.
So Rafi's walks aren't just random wandering, there's science behind it.
It seems like it. It's a neat moment where the analytical side kind of validates the intuition, and this leads them into talking about how they capture ideas, their note-taking journaling habits.
Oh, this should be interesting. I bet they're all completely different.
You would win that bet. They really are perfect reflections of their personalities.
Hmm.
Sarah does daily journaling. She says it's to clear her head. Very reflective.
Okay, and Ravi.
Digital. He just kind of rambles into his notes app, capturing thoughts on the fly. Probably a bit chaotic, very Robbie.
Makes sense. Amit, let me guess, spreadsheets.
Close. He keeps a logical log, thoughts, tasks, but he specifically points out it's not emotional, all structure.
Of course. And Neha.
Hers is fascinating. She calls her journal an occupational hazard. It's full of quotes she hears, observations, bits of overheard conversations.
Like a reporter's notebook, basically. Always recording.
Exactly. It's amazing how these small personal habits really show who they are and how they process the world.
Okay, so moving on from habits, the source then dives into a big debate, right? Talent versus hard work.
Yeah, classic dinner table debate territory. Ravi's the one who throws the question out there. What matters more? Natural talent or just grinding it out?
Yeah, the age-old question. What are the takes?
Sarah gives the common answer, talent might give you a head start.
But hard work wins the race in the end.
Pretty much. Effort over ability, long term.
Yeah.
But Amit, Mr. Consistency, has a different angle.
Which is?
He says, neither talent nor hard work really matters if you just quit. Persistence is the key. Just not stopping.
Okay. That makes sense too. What about Neha?
Neha brings in passion. She argues you need that genuine drive, that love for it, to actually put in the insane amount of effort required.
Right, you won't work that hard for something you don't care about.
Exactly. And then Ravi, probably speaking from his own entrepreneurial roller coaster, throws in the tough part. What if you do work hard, you are passionate, you don't quit,
Yeah.
and you still fail?
Ooh, yeah. That's the hard reality sometimes. How do they resolve that?
Well, they don't really pick a winner between talent and hard work. Instead, they kind of reframe the whole idea of failure.
How so?
The consensus seems to be that failure isn't like the end point. It's part of learning. It's data. And often, the lessons you learn from failing are exactly what you need for the next try, the one that might actually work.
So it's less either and more about the whole process, including the setbacks.
Precisely. It makes you think, doesn't it? How do you, listening, see that balance? What's your own formula?
Definitely food for thought. Now, speaking of different strengths, there's a great example of them working together, isn't there?
Oh yeah, perfect example. Sarah needs help organizing a community event, something literary themed, so she ropes in the group.
And I bet their different skills really came into play.
Totally. It's like a mini case study in collaboration. Neha immediately suggests the book scavenger hunt. Very engaging. Very Neha.
Cool idea.
Amit proposes a living library concept where people become the books and share their own stories.
Whoa, that's deep. Very Amit, in a different way. Analytical, but about human experience.
Right. And Ravi, bringing the tech angle, suggests a hybrid approach, using QR codes around the event linking to stories or author info online.
Oh, smart. Blending the physical and digital.
Exactly. Sarah apparently loved that idea, the mix of tech and literature, and then they just naturally fall into roles.
Let me guess. Amit on tech logistics.
Yep. Ravi leverages his network for local artists and maybe food vendors.
And Sarah handles the actual literary content, the curation.
You got it. It just shows how much more you can do when you combine different talents for one goal. It really amplifies things.
But it wasn't all serious discussions and project planning, right? There was some fun, too.
Definitely. The source includes a game night scene, which is crucial, I think. Shows the other side of their connection. It's not just about work or deep thoughts.
Gotta have fun, too. What happens at game night? Any highlights?
A couple of really human moments. Amit, Mr. Logical, gets slightly embarrassed confessing he had a childhood crush on Hermione Granger.
Ha! No way! That's adorable.
Right. It shows a softer side. And then Neha gets this hilarious dare.
Ah, do tell.
She has to text her editor pretending she's quitting journalism
Yeah.
to become a mime.
A mime. Oh my God. Did she do it?
She did,
Yep.
but the best part is the editor's reply. Just perfect timing. He texts back, "Mime! You don't even like silence."
Huh. That's brilliant. Shows they have that kind of relationship, that banter.
Exactly. It underlines that their bond isn't just built on, shared intellectual pursuits. It's also built on laughter, silliness, inside jokes, just enjoying hanging out. That's vital.
So true. Connection needs that lightness, too. Okay, so as the week wraps up, do they reflect on it all?
They do. The source gives us these individual takeaways, what each of them felt they got out of spending that time together.
What did Sarah say?
Sarah really focused on the connection itself. She felt like something magical happens when they get together, even though their lives are so different.
Nice. Amit, was he inspired?
Seems like it. He was actually thinking of potential side projects, specifically a game exploring empathy and ethics.
Wow. Okay, so the creative spark from earlier definitely stuck.
Looks that way. His analytical mind is tackling these more human themes. Robbie, for his part, doubled down on collaboration.
Let me guess. Dreams don't come true in isolation.
You nailed it.
No.
That's exactly his quote. He sees their talks as vital fuel for progress.
And Neha, the storyteller.
She saw stories everywhere, even in their week together. She was thinking about maybe writing an article on the narratives friends create just by living their lives alongside each other.
That's lovely. So pulling it all together, the week really highlighted, well, everything we've talked about. Connection, different perspectives, growth, collaboration.
And just finding meaning and stories in the everyday stuff.
And they decide to make it a regular thing, right? They
Right.
don't just let the week fade away.
Exactly. That's the practical outcome. They recognize how valuable it was and agree to make it a tradition, a monthly brunch.
Good for them. That takes effort to maintain.
It does. And Neha, true to form, suggests documenting it. She jokingly calls it their friendship archives and says she'll bring a camera next time.
Huh. The journalists always archiving. It shows they're actively choosing to value and preserve that connection.
So when we look back at this whole week with Amit, Sarah, Ravi, and Neha, what's the big picture?
Well, we've seen how careers and creative ideas aren't in separate tracks. They weave together. We saw how much power there is in bringing different views together for collaboration.
Yeah, and that whole nuanced dance between talent and effort and how dealing with failure fits in.
And maybe underpinning it all, just the fundamental importance of connection. Shared experiences, how they spark growth, new ideas, maybe something a little magical, like Sarah said.
It really shows you don't need huge dramatic events to learn something profound. Sometimes the biggest insights about work, life, creativity, they're just there in conversations between friends.
Hanging out, sharing their worlds, challenging each other, laughing. Simple but powerful.
So maybe the thought to leave everyone with is this. Think about the different voices and experiences in your own life. Your friends, your colleagues, family. How do they shape your path? How do they challenge you, spark ideas?
What stories might be hiding in plain sight, just waiting to be noticed in your own everyday conversations?
Something to chew on.
Definitely. Thank you for joining us for this deep